Ah, from New York, New York, you are listening to Extra Time, driven by Continental from Kansas City. I'm Andrew Wiebe with my partners in soccer, David Goss, Matt Doyle. What's up, everybody? Happy Monday. How are you doing? I'm feeling more chipper, feeling a little bit happier, so I'll spare you guys the emotional turmoil that was Thursday's show. Preseason opens today. That is where my mood boost comes from. Teams are, well, maybe they're kicking a ball. Probably they're doing a lot of physical testing, but we're on the road to return. April 17th, of course, is the day, and even bigger news. Guess who we're talking to today, guys?
Number one Extra Time Radio fan?
Number two, because David Beckham is clearly number one. Number
Fair.
two, Bjorn Johnsen of Club de Foot Montreal. Kiss the badge, baby. Thank you to CF Montreal for sending me a jersey with my name on the back.
Background spoilers for everyone. We already recorded the interview, so Weevy's going to proceed to pronounce his name incorrectly for the rest of the show, but that was just correct.
Correct.
It's going to go out of order for everyone.
Yeah, you know, get yourself a friend that can really hold your feet to the fire in the right way. And I'm not saying that in a facetious way. I am not joking. That's what you need in friendship, people. You need people that will bring the best out of you and make sure you don't try to paper over the cracks, as I have just attempted to do there. If you need
Also,
some other
I'm
good
most
vibes,
loyal to Bjorn Johnsen, so you're secondary. So my first responsibility is to be loyal to him.
well, when we hit the interview, we'll find out how Bjorn Johnsen feels about David Goss. Let's say it might not be mutual. Go check out MLSsoccer.com before we get to today's show. I have my one thing to look forward to for every club. Charlie Bum's got a really, really good piece on Vancouver's recruitment overhaul. Basically, they went out and signed a guy named Overhaul who's been at Midtjylland, and where else has he been? He's been all over the place. But he's going to help sort of get their scouting in line, maybe get that number 10 they've been talking to. And then a call up, Justin Morrow is the guest in the call up. That comes out on Tuesday, so go subscribe to that one. We're going to talk Jordan Morris on this show, and not for good reasons. We're going to talk to Bjorn. We're going to talk about our top 5 teams in MLS as it stands right today, the first day of preseason, and hit some good mail. And that is our producer Andre's reminder of the day. Get well soon, Jordan Morris. Saw the tweet come out this morning from Swansea City. Saw the injury, hoped for the best. Of course, was not the best news. Jordan Morris, it sounds like, Dave, has an ACL tear in the other knee, not the one he did here in MLS that he recovered from and then came back gangbusters from, but the other knee. Reading between the lines of that Swansea tweet, it's not altogether clear. Guys, this is... I'm trying to stay up, but this is a downer. This is a really, really big downer for a guy who went and chased his dream, was on the precipice of making something really big happen for himself in Europe, and then to have it all kind of fall away, it's just awful.
And you watch it go down, and it's the first thought is, again, right? For someone who it's happened to, that's what's so killer, and how he's worked his way back and become a better player, coming back from an ACL tear, reaching this peak, doing so much at his hometown club, and now taking this opportunity to go to Europe. And the worst part about these injuries is just the timeline. I mean, he goes down on the field and you're already thinking, what's in 12 months? Because that's how long a lot of these take. And that throws basically this entire thing to the wayside. The loan will obviously end. He'll be back in Seattle, which at least he has that background, to go home, to go to a club that's already put him through this. His dad is one of the doctors he knows how long it'll take. He knows the process, but he also knows that he can reach that peak at the end of it. So that's sliver of positivity for him, at least, is, he's kind of been through this, but pretty devastating just to see how excited he was and we were for him to get this opportunity and show what he could do at this level. And then before it even started, for it to be over.
Yeah, it's tough. It was tough I refused to watch the injury, but like just seeing all the tweets come out on the weekend when it happened, and seeing the pictures of him carted off. As you said, Gasman, like he's been through it before, so he knows the blueprint and sort of the map for the way back. But I don't want to be callous about it, but like we all know that Jordan Morris, just like Timmy Weah, just like Christian Pulisic, just like Gio Reyna, and everybody else, like Paul Arriola, who's with Jordan Morris at Swansea and just came back from ACL tear himself. These guys are all in a competition to get healthy and to win a job with the U.S. national team for the World Cup. And this probably puts Jordan Morris, well down that list. It probably means he's going to miss most, if not all, of World Cup qualifying. And it's like, let's say it takes 12 months. That means he's just starting to get back on the field in February of next year. Where were, from a U.S. national team perspective, where will the guys he was competing with to win a roster spot be? And that, I imagine that has to go through his head. And it just has to, especially because Jordan Morris isn't one of the young guys. He's 26 years old. This, 2022 was going to be his best chance to be a World Cup player. And those hopes dimmed pretty considerably this weekend. And just from that perspective, it reminds me of when Corey Gibbs got hurt right before 2006, Chris Armas doing his ACL right before 2002, and then again before 2006. It feels like that. And guys like Gibbs and Armas are some of the best players that the U.S. has ever had suit up. But we don't remember them as such because they never had those World Cup moments. So here's to hoping that Jordan Morris, let's hope it takes less than 12 months. Let's hope it's a complete recovery. And let's hope that just as last time, the Jordan Morris who returns from an ACL tear is better than he was before the tear in the first place.
I mean, just from a human perspective, when we hit this 2 straight shows, I'd like to think this show is almost always coming at things from a human perspective, but it's so awful because of the timing you were talking about. And it's not just the timeline to the World Cup, and I don't want to get too far ahead of myself. Jordan Morris was a huge part of us qualifying for that World Cup. He was that important and versatile, productive sort of player for the United States national team. But now for Jordan Morris, it comes in this weird moment in his career where probably this European dream, maybe, I don't know, I don't want to count it out. Maybe he comes back better than ever, and we talked about this in the pre-meeting, Dave, and you said 28 or so he could go. But then he's in this weird middle ground where is he as attractive? Is he going to have the same destinations he had? He had made the decision to stay in Seattle and delay this dream, defer it a little bit. And it worked out perfectly for him other than the injury. Into the national team, winning championships, best 11 quality, put himself on the platform to now make this jump. And it just felt like he had the world at his fingertips.
So I'm not disagreeing with anything you say. And obviously we're in a space now where we're putting words in someone else's mouth, so we're not sure. But I don't know that it was his dream. And I think that's kind of part of what happened. I think his dream was to win MLS Cup for Seattle Sounders in front of X amount of thousands of people in the middle of downtown Seattle, and to do it at his peak and play in a World Cup for the U.S. And so this is terrible and it sucks. But I think part of the challenge that he took on going there was, this is what everyone else is doing around me, and this is how I have to remain in the national team. And maybe I've accomplished as much as I think I can. So that's the next step. I don't know that Jordan Morris specifically came up saying, my only dream is to play at this competition in this country, in Champions League, in UEFA, whatever it is. So I will just say, and we were talking in the pre-meeting, if he comes back and has a good season next year and goes to the World Cup and gets himself into his starting lineup and has a good World Cup, there's a chance then he will be brought in as he's ready to play now type guy for a European team. He's had offers before Swansea that he turned down, not just out of college, since he's been in MLS, right? So he's turned it down more than once, to the point where I think that's the one silver lining here to me is for him to get back means, and fingers crossed for all of us, right? In front of a full crowd in downtown Seattle in 2022, playing in big MLS games. I think that's back for him. So I think that part's not as totally killer as this was the moment I've been building my whole life for, to go to Europe.
Yeah. Maybe I'm just counting out the World Cup in that sense, because that's part of, to me, what the European move was about, right? Was to keep himself at the very, very forefront of the conversations with the national team and of Greg Berhalter's selection. Let's just, this feels a little callous to take it this direction. I don't feel like there's that much more we can say about this injury in Jordan, other than get well soon, and we hope your recovery and return is magnificent. And just like the last time, where it might have taken a second for you to get back to it, but then you were at top speed. What are you doing if you're Garth Lagerwey, who we had on this show, and what are you thinking? And talking about those scenarios for the Seattle Sounders with not just some player, with, as you said, David, like a heart and soul piece of your club. Whether he was going to go to Swansea and stay in Europe or not, he was going to be that and will probably always be that for this club. What are you thinking now if you're Garth? What do you do? How does this change your plan? He's coming back. That move's not going to happen. the influx of cash that might have come from that move or would have come from that move is not going to happen. You're just doubling down on Jordan now, right? That has to be it, right? Like, this is our guy. He's back. He's going through adversity. These are tough times for him again. We know we have the facilities, the capacity, the personnel, the environment to help him get back and do this again. And I guess that's all you can think.
You have to figure out how to cover the roster spot in 2021. Like, who plays in that spot. And I think if you know that he's going to be out for the year, you can find, salary cap relief and whatever to bring in a TAM level guy. They're not going to be as good as Jordan Morris because it takes guys time anyway. And because you're not guaranteeing a long-term thing, it's probably tough. So you'd assume it's someone on a loan that Garth can find out there who is between clubs, is looking to get their feet back, is trying to get into a national team, whatever it is. It probably has to be a fairly specific spot. So it makes it tough for this year. But I think going forward, I mean, if you're right and he struggles to get back into the World Cup team and he doesn't go to Europe, having Jordan Morris in this club long term, if he comes back healthy, the Seattle Sounders are probably a better club on the field than they would have been, even if they'd sold him and had the money to spend. So there is that light at the end of the tunnel, as you said, because they've already been through this with him and know that he can come out of it stronger and that they can help him get there.
Listening to those electricians do work on your house.
Oh, didn't know if that was coming through. I'll go ahead and hit that mute button when I'm not speaking. This is a good transition moment to let you talk for a while, Doyle. Graham in Florida hit us up on Twitter, said, what is the most well-rounded team in the league? Yeah. And we wanted to tweak that a little bit because I'm not sure what well-rounded means. Like balanced, overall talent, like depth chart champion, where you look at the depth chart in preseason and say, my God, they're loaded, but that doesn't always carry over to. I'm going to mute and you just go ahead.
I mean, like you, I'm not sure exactly what well-rounded means. I guess you could say, well-rounded probably means can win in a variety of different ways, whether it's on the counter, via possession, set pieces, throw a bunch of stuff at it and see what sticks. But that's just it's tough to answer at this point because we are at the very, very start of preseason, and rosters aren't even close to complete. So rather than well-rounded, I think it's just a good prompt to start talking about like who are the best teams in the league right now as we enter preseason for 2021. So my top 5 in no particular order, but kind of in an order.
The kind of order, are we starting at 5 or 1?
We're starting at 1. It's
okay.
and you're wearing the shirt. And we all agree, right? Like Columbus, what they did last year when they were healthy was remarkable up to and obviously including MLS Cup, which they weren't even completely healthy for. And then they went out and made the types of additions that makes any sort of injuries or absences like less of a liability. They are a deeper and better and more proven team now. Like, is there any dissent, any doubt that Columbus are a top 5 team in the league at this point?
You could argue they're more dynamic now, too. Like
because of Molino.
Because of Molino. Yeah, when you have Molino and Zelarayan on, that's a different. Oh my God! I think we're having trouble. I think the multi-tool is going through something up there. It's having some real big issues. A lot of vibrations. That plaster and
lathe. I do
lathe.
look forward to the post-show text from Ruby, which is his house just ripped apart. I came to fix one outlet and then it just opened.
Yeah, I don't get to be up there. Hey guys, I'm taping. Don't take any walls down. Just walk upstairs and it's all just complete disarray. All right, back on mute for me. I'm enjoying this. That's a good number 1.
So I think everyone agrees with that. There's all the pieces they brought in, and then there's the Aiden Moore showed what he could do in an MLS Cup final. So now you have that piece. Keita had a good year, and Vito Wormgore, who was on the roster, is now back. So outside of right back depth, which isn't something you're going to lose sleep over, this is the deepest team in the league, and they've gotten better high end.
Yeah. And the other thing, to go back to being a little more versatile, like, okay, Molino, we know if he's feeling it, he could just single-handedly manufacture not just chances, but goals. And they didn't really have one of those guys who could do that from the wing last year. I think Molino is the guy that we're all kind of hoping Derek Etienne Jr. could end up being. And it's a pretty big gap between those two guys. And we've seen Derek Etienne Jr. be really, really good in really big moments for both Columbus and the Red Bulls. The other thing, though, Bradley Wright Phillips is one of the great goal scorers in MLS history. He's also one of the best pressing forwards in MLS history. And the Crew didn't press a ton last year. So now, I mean, if we want to bring it back to the original question, yeah, they might be even more well-rounded than they were in 2020 when they proved at the end of the year they were the best team in the league. So Columbus, number one. Number two is LAFC. And I know this is going to bother some people because they think we overrate LAFC, but this team, I mean, they took Tigres to the wire. They were 20 minutes away from being the first MLS team to win the modern iteration of the CONCACAF Champions League. And we know how great that Tigres team was. And they were able to re-sign Murillo. They added a starting right back in Moon from the K-League, which I know you guys are going to talk a little bit about with Bjorn Johnsen. They brought back almost all of their young players, and you would expect them to sort of level up. And they have this DP slot open. And to have they're going into the season with kind of a question at striker, except Danny Musovski gave them really good minutes last year, and you could live with him and Corey Baird for the time being. And then you have that DP slot open, and then on top of that, you don't have the questions about central defense that they did last year. I think the version of LAFC that we saw in the Champions League, that was the real version of LAFC.
That was the peak with Murillo. That was when he had gotten himself comfortable, and that was the best they looked. I agree, because that was the best they were at the back, and now they bring him back. They add a right back. So I agree with you, and that versatility to bring in the next DP gives them the potential to get higher. But to the way I see the well-rounded question is also, if a team were to lose one guy, would they still be able to win? And there are teams in MLS that can't, with one specific player, like a Reynoso. Mm-hmm. And I think both the teams you've mentioned could still be competitive without a Vela or a Zelarayan with the pieces they still have in the group.
Can I throw something in on that front, which is that you now have basically a year of accumulated knowledge and experience for all those young South Americans they went out and signed as sort of the hey, if a door opens for one of our main guys, these guys are going to walk right through it, or they're going to push those guys. They might win a job. Cifuentes, you've got Ginella, of course, Palacios. Those three in particular, would think that they would take a jump.
On the flip side, you've also Palacios didn't have a good year last year, and there's a lot of tough things that happen for a young player. But Marco Farfan is an insurance policy on that. And I don't know where Tristan Blackman plays, but Bob Bradley wants him in a team. So is he backup right back? Is he starting right back? Is it three center backs? Does he give him minutes at left back? Whatever it is, you've also got that versatility.
I don't think you're going to get minutes at left back from Tristan Blackman, but I think Bob has always been willing to rotate his squad, and Blackman can back up Murillo. He can start over Murillo at times. He can start over Segura and play left center back, and obviously he can give minutes at right back. And if Tristan Blackman's upside is give you 1,500 good minutes across three spots on a back line for a team that has title ambitions, that's a good player. That's a good player, and you need a lot of players like that to win in this league. And I think that LAFC at this point have more of those types of players than they did last year. Honestly, looking at this, I think that there's Columbus and LAFC, and then there's a gap.
Agreed.
Unless Sebastian Blanco is healthy, and that's my third team. Portland, what we saw from Portland last summer in Orlando, not just that they won, the way that they won. First of all, they were dominant on set pieces. Second of all, they were, as always, devastating on the counterattack. But the third aspect of it was they were manufacturing goals from possession, which we have not seen much of from any Portland team since 2013. And that was a sort of a new approach and a new level of flexibility, a new well-roundedness, you could say, in large part thanks to Blanco playing at a league MVP type level, and in large part because of Eric Williamson sort of bursting onto the scene and being an elite box-to-box central midfielder in this league. And having those two guys, hopefully Williamson will have leveled up, and then Blanco hopefully will be healthy. I think Portland are right there in this top 5 mix.
And
This
the
is a
other thing,
good time for me, by the way, to just throw in there that I think Giovanni Savarese is going to join us on Thursday.
Look at that. Good plug.
Hey, Timbers fans, just to throw that a little icing on top of the cake there.
And the other piece about that, Doyle, is in that final third attacking, they've added 2 fullbacks that are both starters. That should bring more attacking quality, especially from left back, but also Van Rinken from right back, that they hadn't had over the last year. The one question mark with them is it's not just Blanco, it's Niashkoda. And so you'd assume Blanco comes back in. You can start a Bobasi for the most part at center forward. It probably covers enough of what you've lost. But after Blanco got hurt, the best the Timbers played was when Niashkoda was hitting and in form. Then once he got hurt, the playoffs felt unreasonable and they went out.
Yeah, I actually disagree with that a little bit. I think that like Niashkoda was he was like a trump card that they could throw in either at the end of the games or against an overmatched opponent, right? And not to say he wasn't really good. Like he was clearly becoming more and more comfortable, but I don't think he's anywhere near that type of loss, especially because they brought Mora back and they have a Bobasi, and those are both. I
don't remember a time from last year where I was impressed by Felipe Mora, and I thought he was even a starting level MLS center forward.
So even if he's not, he's a very good backup level MLS forward. And then you just start a Bobasi, who was the starter when they actually won the MLS's back tournament. So they have that. Jimmy Chara got much better throughout the year. There are some concerns about fullback depth. As you said, they brought in 2 new starters. They have Bonilla back as well. They don't have much beyond that. I don't think that is particularly difficult for them to address. So I just, if you want to look for a reason that Portland might not be this level of team, it just goes back to the Diego Chara question. Do you believe Diego Chara has one more elite year in his legs? And I've stopped, to this point, I've stopped even asking that question. He's timeless.
Yeah. If you ask that question, you end up being the Weavy 10 goals for Wando.
Right.
Yeah, no, it's not worth it.
You don't want to be stuck on the wrong. You'd rather be wrong the 1 year he finally falls off
100%.
than right the 1 year.
Yeah, no, I sold my soul with that prediction, and I'm only gradually piecing it back together year by year. So why do you think I'm out here being like Wanda's a first ballot Hall of Famer? 1, I do believe that, but 2, I have a responsibility to make up for past wrongs. I need the karma to come along with me. That's top 3 here. We have 2 Western Conference teams and the Crew. You going East or West with number 4, Doyle?
I'm going to go back to the West with number 4. And I think this one's going to surprise you guys a little bit because it feels like their roster's in a little bit more flux than the other teams, and that there are some obvious questions and one very obvious loss. But Minnesota United, what they did with Babello in the lineup once he arrived, I mean, I'm looking at it now. 1, 2, they lost only 1 game when he was a starter, and it took just the most spectacular comeback in recent playoff history to stop them short of MLS Cup. Now they do have just huge, massive need at center forward. Their only center forward on the roster right now is still Foster's Langston. I'm pretty convinced they are going to get a center forward signed sometime in the next month and a half before the season starts. They will miss Kevin Molino. Reynoso was the biggest part of their late season surge, but Molino had a big role to play in that as well. And while they've got a couple of good veterans and Robin Lod and Ethan Finley, they only have really question marks beyond that. But still, this team proved to be more solid and deeper than we thought they were going into last year. When Ike got hurt last year, I said, they're done. I said, this team's going to give up 70 goals again. And, maybe they'll play some fun soccer, but it's not going to be winning soccer. And that was dead wrong. And now it's still a question as to whether or not Ike will come back. I hope he will, because he's his 3-year run from 2017 to 2019, I still say was the best 3-year run we've ever seen from a center back in this league. If they get him back, on top of everything else. They're going to be one of the best defensive teams in the league. They have their magician in Babello Reynoso. They have good, solid wingers. And all you have to do is go out and use that DP slot on a center forward. And I don't think that's too tough for them to figure out how to do.
I mean, but time out. It has been tough for them to figure out how to do.
Fair.
That's been the whole storyline, is that they haven't figured out how to do it. And I also I think that back seven, good to go. Work done. Deep, almost 3 at some positions. Even if Ike doesn't come back, you saw what happened last year. They went out and improved. I think they'll be fine. But it is really Robin Ludd, Finley, and Reynoso. And then what? Tomas Chacon? No, come on. Adrian doesn't have any faith in him. It's clear. The first year and a half of his life in Minnesota has made that clear. And then it's draft picks. And maybe those come good. Their draft picks have come good in recent years. They've had some really nice drafts. But that feels really thin in those 2 winger positions and then the forward position for me. That's a lot of work to get done.
So you don't have them as a top 5 team right now?
Not right now.
No.
To me, that is too many question marks for Minnesota. And Reynoso, give him the tools. Give him the top hat and the bunny and the wand and whatever else, he'll make magic. But right now he doesn't have those things. He has 1 or 2 props. And I just don't think it gets them into the top 5. They certainly are a playoff team in my mind. I just wouldn't put them in the top 5 at this moment.
I also would go back to what I was saying coming off LAFC in that even talking about Reynoso, if they lose him, this team's not competitive.
Yeah.
Right? Where the other 3 teams you named, one has already lost their talisman, and they still were 4th in the West without him. And then you look at the other 2 teams, and if Vela were to go down this year, I still think LAFC would be competitive. And for Columbus, if Zelarayan went down, they missed 2 DPs and 1 MLS Cup. We don't even have to have that conversation with them. I don't think Minnesota's in that category. So in terms of well-rounded, I wouldn't put them there with, well, I guess we can wait for your 5th team, but there are other teams that I'd put over them.
So I get what you're saying. They are more reliant on Reynoso than any of the first 3 teams I've mentioned are on one particular player, other than maybe LAFC with Atuesta, because LAFC with that. But we also see in Cifuentes and maybe Janela guys who can sort of fill in for Atuesta and be an heir apparent. They don't really have that with Reynoso, and I think that does separate them a little bit. Well, I guess I just forgot about Diego Chara. So just like Diego Chara, is the key for everything for Portland. I guess Reynoso is that. But I do take issue with you saying they're not going to be competitive. They're not a competitive team. And to me, with the way, Minnesota was competitive last year before Reynoso showed up. And then they got even better once Dane St. Clair got into the lineup. Dane St. Clair was spectacular. He was spectacular, goalkeeper of the year type, shot stopping from this kid. So I do think they have the tools to continue to be competitive, and that will, if you could win games defensively and keep zeros on the board, and I think I feel like this team can. And then when you have Reynoso for 2,500 minutes, you're going to score a lot of goals, basically no matter who you have up top.
All right, give me number 5, because as we're talking about Minnesota, I'm cycling through all the teams where I think you might go number 5 and the teams that I would replace the Loons with. So who is 5?
Do you have a guess? Give me your best guess.
My best guess.
I can give you the team I think you've skipped already, which is Orlando.
Okay, I have Orlando 6th.
Okay, I was thinking the Revs could sneak into this.
Yeah, I have the Revs 5th.
Okay.
But wait. How can you say the Revs are the most well-rounded when Carles Gil was out, they barely made the playoffs, and then once he came back, they went to the Eastern Conference Finals? Great. But how are you a well-rounded team? You could say they've improved, but have they improved that much?
I mean, they didn't barely make the playoffs. They were 6 points clear of the 9th place team. And then once they got to the playoffs, they were dominant. They just suffered.
Great. But that was with Gil, and he was the best player.
Yeah, he was. I mean, he was their best player for sure.
But what player would Orlando lose where they would drop off that much?
Antonio Carlos.
Maybe.
Yeah, Antonio Carlos is the obvious one.
Also goalkeeper. Yeah.
Gaese is the other one, though that is obviously probably true for New England as well.
Yeah, but they got Schlegel, so
yes. But I think that, I mean, the bigger difference between these two teams is that the Revs have improved this offseason, and I don't think you can argue that Orlando City really have. Like, Orlando City lost their starting center forward. I think we can. I don't expect Daryl DK to be back, and like Pato, as we said on last week's show, I'll take the under on his goal scoring total. So they have that big question. Whereas the Revs, yeah, they have a question about like what happens if Carlos Heel gets hurt, but I think they also have an answer that you just go a flat 4-4-2. You put Buxa and Bo up top together, and you play something a little bit regressive, or maybe even go with a 3-5-2. Though I know Bruce Arena hasn't really liked to use that formation except in the two biggest games of his career. So I just like this team. They went out on the market. They addressed a couple of big needs. They do have to still address some center back depth, and maybe even bring in another starting caliber center back to push either Henry Kessler or Andrew Farrell. But for the most part, like this team is solid as hell. They got all the way to the Eastern Conference Final. They got better. And to me, that makes them a top 5 team.
Sporting KC and Sounders fans right now are
Sounders fans
screaming.
cannot.
I mean, they still
Sounders
have
fans don't have a starting 11. So they cannot be yet screaming about this conversation.
They cannot be, or we don't think they should be.
They can trust that their club will figure it out, and that's totally fair. But on February 22nd of 2021, they are not in this conversation.
Okay. What about Sporting Kansas City, who went and finished top of the West?
Are we done talking about New England? Do you have any?
We don't have to be. We don't have to be.
I don't have any pushback on them being a top 5 club right now in MLS. My pushback was on the well-rounded debate, and those are two, I think, slightly different convos. And for Orlando, I agree with you in that they probably haven't improved a lot, except there should be individual improvement in major pieces in their team, right? You've got 2 young central midfielders. You've got João Moutinho, who you hope will have for the full year, Benji Michel, who you hope can make a jump, and you don't know if there's another step for Chris Mueller, and then there's question marks at center forward, but there's options at center forward. You just need one to hit. Yeah, so I agree with you that from the end of the playoffs till today, New England has gotten better than Orlando has.
Yeah, and while I agree with you that you would hope for improvement for some of those young guys, with Orlando City, there's also like Nani's 34 or 35 now, Pereira's 31, and really struggled with some injuries last year that diminished his effectiveness in like down the stretch and into big games. So it's kind of like it cuts both ways, whereas the Revs aren't really in that situation just in terms of age. Now, we know they're a different team if Carlos Heel's not out there, but pretty much every team in the league is a different team without their best player. And I don't think it's devastating for the Revs to go 2 months without Carlos Heel. I think they have other ways to win games, which is why I have them top 5 in this one.
If you got a beef, let us know. 401-206-0MLS, extra time at MLSsoccer.com. Big mailbag coming up on the other side of this interview with Bjorn Johnsen. We taped it a little earlier before. Check it out. Oh, it's an extra special AT&T 5G call to the field. We've got our intro in which David Beckham says that he gets all his information about Major League Soccer, well, the MLS, he said, from Extra Time. Welcome to the show, Bjorn Johnsen. Bjorn, you made our day, let's say, with your opening press conference in Montreal. We got the Club de Foot jersey to support you. I just wish they would have sent me with a Johnson on the back. That was a mistake from Montreal. Welcome to Extra Time, man.
Appreciate it. I'm really happy to be here as well.
So let's just start here. Let's start with the mention, and then we'll get to the life story, because the life story is so interesting. So we'll get the boring stuff out of the way. You listened to Extra Time. Was this just to prepare for your move to Montreal? Was this a longer-term thing? Like, how well do you know us?
I will give you maybe a year. It's been a year and a half, probably. I mean, since, I played with Perry Kitchen. So, I follow Perry Kitchen a lot. He went to LA, and then, I have a couple of players I played against, like Eloy Room, who plays at the Crew. He got injured this past year, but, I kind of follow those guys, and then I kind of just stumbled across you guys listening to the podcast, and I really enjoyed the content, and really just kind of, you guys are down to earth. Keep going with the hard opinions, but I mean, I like the arguments as well. I think I'm just missing, I'm missing Matt right now, him and his cat. So I think that's pretty much it.
Oh wow, man!
Whoa,
Woo.
it's all working.
All right, so Bjorn, we did not look for a lot of American soccer fans. Big soccer is where we followed back in the day, like Americans abroad. And you're New York City born, North Carolina. I mean, you're an American. We had followed you in those deep cuts, but we didn't know your career that well when we found out Montreal signed you. So give us the evaluation. I don't think we talked about the signing for a super long time. Did we get it right or did we get it wrong? The analysis of Bjorn Johnsen to Montreal Impact. Sorry, CF de Montreal, Club de Foot.
Ooh.
I slipped.
First of all, I think you guys hit it up pretty much spot on every time. So I'm not going to give you guys hard about that. Obviously, I didn't appreciate the hard knock from David, but I think that's probably because of that Toronto jersey on the back wall over there. But that's how it is. I think you guys have to understand, as a soccer player, you're always trying to find little things that'll help you, that'll fuel you for the next season. Obviously, for me, it's very difficult to get fueled by when I'm changing so many teams. So it's kind of like win your place and play, but also you need to have some kind of something negative to push you keep going. I think Ibrahimovic does that the best last year, or a couple years ago, pushing arguments and trying to make himself angry throughout games. So I think that, obviously listening to the podcast and then hearing David as well, not being so enthusiastic about me, that helps. But I think following you guys has really been exciting, because you got to remember, when I grew up in North Carolina, there was nothing. There wasn't that much soccer. I mean, I don't even think it was USL at that moment. We had some team in Raleigh. I played for Castle, CASL. And they had a team at the training facilities that had a professional team. I think they were like low level. I can't remember the name. It might have been Expos. I don't even know. And from there, I think now being able to follow the MLS with you guys, and also with the app, and also with so many people interested in soccer itself now, it's just a breath of fresh air. I think I'm really just happy about that. My background.
Down. This is Bjorn Johnsen show now. Is it Johnson or Johnson?
It's Johnson. You did say it right the first time.
Thank you. So
Weeby's
Weeby's been saying it wrong the whole time. Let's just
now I feel like a complete.
But that's the American way, right? That's the American way. I mean, I've been called Bjorn in middle school as well. I think it's, my name is not very easy.
So all right, take us back into the sport, though. For you, is it from your Norwegian side that soccer was the passion in North Carolina?
It's actually funny. I played basketball, hockey, and soccer. My dad, when I was in middle school, he just said, "Look, I can't take you across the city to Cary and take you to Wake Forest and take you to Chapel Hill to play soccer and basketball, AAU. You can't do all that. I can't do all that. So you got to figure out a certain way, a certain path, and go with it and try to be a professional in that, if you want to do that, or use that to get to college." So I told him, look, basketball's probably at that moment where I was, where we lived, it wasn't exactly the best crew to stay with. And then, hockey was really expensive when it comes to ice skates and sticks and stuff. So I also had a group of friends that play soccer. And, I just ended up choosing soccer because of my background as well. Soccer, I watched every day on TV. My dad had the World Cup. I have even the VHS of all the games from the 1998 World Cup. Those kind of things. Norway obviously did really well, so I started becoming a really big fan of the Norwegian national team at that moment, and that became my dream to be a national team player for Norway. Obviously, I was an American, so if they had called me, I would have maybe said yes. But obviously throughout the years, that was my aspiration, and I figured out that the best way to not throw away that chance was maybe not going to college the first couple of years and taking that other route. I mean, I know everybody has a different route. I know that there are Messis of the world that go from Barcelona, from the youth team, straight on up, or there are players who go from college, like a friend of mine, Perry Kitchen, who went, Akron, and then went into the MLS that way through the draft. So, I know all the other ways, but obviously my way was a little bit different. I thought going to play overseas with my passport, my Norwegian passport, was really helpful for me to aspire to be a professional soccer player. So I took that opportunity with my dad giving me the opportunity with my passport, and also with me staying with my family. I stayed with my family for a year when I was 16 to play for Lean Football, the old team of Obi Mikel. That's where he started before he was at Chelsea. So yeah, I played the youth team there for a year, and I stayed with my uncle and aunt and cousins. I have a lot of family in Norway, so it was very easy to transpire over there, and they could support me. I did well. I played midfield at that moment. I played center back at that moment as well. So I scored a bunch of goals when I was a midfielder, and they gave me the opportunity to come back, but I had to finish high school. So I went back to high school. I went to Broughton High School in Raleigh. I played well for the high school team with a guy named Harrison Delbridge. He actually plays in Korea now. He played in USL in Sacramento, in Cincinnati. I think there's another guy, Forrest Lasso. He plays in Cincinnati. He plays at Tampa Bay now.
USL Defender of the Year for us.
He was our center back
Wow.
in high school. So I mean, I'm coming from high school with a good team. Coach Izzy, shout out to him. He prepared us to be professionals. He prepared us to be into college. So when the opportunity came, I didn't have the highest grades. I had like a high CAC average. I could have gone to summer school and got into maybe Syracuse or UNC. But at that moment, I just felt like my options were to go to college and try to, be serious with college and focus on college, not just soccer, or go and focus on soccer. So at that moment, I talked to my dad. He sat me down and said, look, what do you want to do? And I said, how about we try to go to Norway again, like you said, and we'll try it that way. I got some trials. I had Lillestrøm in Norway, which is another team in Oslo, and then there was Vålerenga where I signed. But I was actually scheduled to go to Lillestrøm first, but because the team Vålerenga was my dad's team, like he would love that team, so I ended up going to that trial first. So I had like a 4-day trial. I practiced with, for example, Sheldon. What's his name? Jamaican guy. He just died. Sheldon. Oh man, Jamaican international. You guys should know him.
I should know this. That's why I'm racking my brain. How did it not make?
Center forward.
Center forward, black.
He's
guy,
one of their all-time leading goal scorers.
Yeah,
Sheldon.
he was. I can't remember his name. He's Sheldon's last name. Maybe. Well, he was a striker, so I was playing against these kind of guys. I was playing against Mua Abdullawi, who played in Hanover.
Luton Shelton.
Oh,
Shelton. There you go. It came to mind. I was playing against some really good players, and they asked me to stay. They said, look, we'll put you in the under-20 team. You can show yourself there. So I ended up being under-20 team with a bunch of good players. I won't name them out because they're a bunch of Norwegians, but very good players. And I just learned a lot. I just played in the first, played training in the first team, played in the second team, played in the under-20s, scoring goals, ended up being captain a couple of times for the under-20 team. And everything went well until I got to 21, and the first team didn't see a future with me. So I felt like, what do I do? I started bouncing around some teams in second division, third division in Norway, just playing games and trying to get experience. And it came really to a kind of a hold where I saw that when I talked to my dad, I said, Dad, it doesn't look like I'm going anywhere in Norway. I mean, not because it's not possible. It's just because where I am, I'm playing in the second division. I'm playing in the third division. I wasn't getting any calls to go to the first division again. So I felt I had to kind of branch out on my own again. And it was really hard, but I thought, with all the money that I made throughout those years in the second division and third division in Norway, they pay pretty good, so for an 18, 19, 20-year-old. So I thought, save some money up. Mom and dad will help a little bit. And I'm just going to go for it. So I went to Spain, took my video, made a video on YouTube. Made a video on YouTube, sent it out to about 30 agents on Google, official FIFA agents, and went to Spain on some calls with an Argentinian agent, and he gave me some trials and some teams, just small little teams, and yeah, I went to France for a month, practiced there. Bunch of teams. All those French teams didn't really want me because I didn't speak French. So, that didn't help. But I thought that maybe staying in Spain would help. Good place to start. I started playing third division, Antiquera. Scored some goals. Got a bunch of attention in that level in soccer in Spain. And some people called me, an agent called me to go to Atlético Baleares, which was in Palma de Mallorca, the party island of basically second party island other than Ibiza, which was very, very bad idea. But it was a fantastic
Hold on. Tell us why it was such a bad idea. Too distracting.
Very distracting. Very distracting. I didn't realize what, obviously college is probably maybe distracting as well, going out and stuff. But a young guy playing soccer in Europe is a hot commodity. We'll say that. So everyone wants to talk to you. Everyone wants to know who you are. Everyone wants a piece of what you do. It's very difficult to handle when you're a kid. So I had to learn. I learned probably after a couple months. But yeah, learning experience as well. And I did really well for training with that team. I was behind Walter Pandiani. So I learned a lot from that legend in training. A lot of players who played in that team played in Barcelona B team, played with Messi, played with players who are on the top of your list as players in the La Liga setup. So I learned a lot playing in that team. Even though I didn't play that much, I played my first game. Actually, my first game for that team was Copa del Rey against Al Cayano. Al Cayano is the team who just almost beat Real Madrid in the Copa del Rey a couple of weeks ago. So, that was my first professional game as a soccer player in Europe. So I didn't do very well the first 45 minutes.
Bjorn, can I ask you this? I'm looking through, and you have a fascinating path here because we're in the Spanish portion, but it goes Portuguese, it goes Bulgarian. You go to Hart, and that's where, of course, Perry, I'm assuming you met Perry in Scotland, then to the Netherlands, and then back to Norway, and then to Korea, and now to the United States. Like, you have never been afraid, clearly, to take a chance on yourself. When did you feel like your career really got the traction that's gotten you to this point? Like, when did you feel that moment where you were like, oh, okay, here we go. It's happening for me right now.
After the moment I played in that team with Walter Pandiani, I had learned so much throughout that year that I felt I was ready to play games. I wasn't really playing that many games. I was like come off the bench and not really playing, kind of just playing 10 minutes. They were giving me time. They were trying to get me into the game and stuff like that. I was young, so I was just, Bambi on skates, basically. So I think at that moment when I moved from there to Portugal, I played in a team called Atlético in the second division, and they really gave me the chance to play start in and start out every game. And I had a span of 14 games where I scored like 2, 2, 2, 1, 2, 2, 1, 2 every single game I scored. I don't know why. I don't know what hit me. I think the confidence of the coach at that moment saying, look, you're going to play. We don't have money, so we can't pay some big level signing for a striker. So you're our, hope and savior. So we need you to do this. We need you to score goals, practice on that in the games or in training so that you perfect your craft. And then we're going to use you. And if I didn't do well after maybe 10 games, he would have taken me out, obviously. But learning so much from Walter Pandiani and those players in the second B division in Spain, playing in Portugal, all of a sudden I'm getting calls from Reading in Queen's Park, Benfica, Sporting, Victoria Guimarães, teams that were really looking at me. I even had the Marítimo. They offered me a contract in the first division in Portugal, but they offered me small money, and I wasn't making that much money. All this stuff was coming into fruition where I was running out of money from Norway. I couldn't really getting paid very low salary in Portugal at that moment. It was obviously in that moment was the crisis in Europe, so there's no money.
Yeah.
So I'm becoming in the moment where I gotta get a payday where I can pay my college or start saving up. I can't really play like this. I'm enjoying myself. I'm scoring a bunch of goals, but I'm not getting that opportunity to get money. So it's a job. So at that moment, I get the offer to go to Benfica, go on loan to Belenenses. So I'm going to be on the B team in Benfica, but they're going to loan me to Belenenses to play in the first division. What happens is my agent goes with a striker called Deverson. He goes to Germany. He signs in Cologne from Belenenses. That's the first step of the deal. I'm waiting at home to go sign to Belenenses. I've already actually met the president of Benfica and the Belenenses president together in a meeting for dinner. So I already know this is happening. Comes to deadline day in December for January for me to sign from Atletico Benfica. Nobody calls me. Time is going out, deadline day, boom, done. Nobody's called me. My agent's in Germany, signing the other guy in Cologne. Nobody's called me yet, and I'm sitting at home. Nothing happened.
Wow.
I'm heartbroken. I have no idea what I have to do. I'm crying. I'm calling my parents. I'm like, what do I do? I don't know what to do. I can't live like this. I don't have money to only make $1,000 a month playing in second division in Portugal. Like this is not what I imagined soccer to be like. You know what I mean? So I'll obviously write a book about this one day. But
Yeah.
it's stuff like that. And after that, obviously, here comes Litex Lovic from Bulgaria. I've never heard in my life offering me a huge contract to go play in the middle of nowhere in Bulgaria, but it's first division. So I called my dad. I said, look, Dad, what do you want me to do? What do you think is the best idea? Should I stay here and make nothing? Or should I go and, play first division? He looks me straight in the face. He says, look, you can do what you want. For me, you should wait. You should wait till summer and see what you can get in summer, because it is the winter window. He knows because he's European.
Yeah.
I don't. So I'm like, Dad, I can't do this. And he's like, oh, well, make your own decision, but I don't make a decision you can regret. I negotiate my contract for a week. Litex gives me even more money and a signing bonus because they probably know I need money. But and I signed with them. And I thought, you know what? I'll play first division. I'll be in Europa League qualifiers. I'll play maybe even Europa League. I'll show myself. And from there, I can make that bounce to Russia or to a good league, or, I can make that bounce. I just got to score goals. I know this now. Now, if I score goals, everyone's going to want me. Since what happened in Portugal, it doesn't matter if I'm playing Bulgaria as long as that I'm, playing and playing in the first division. So, I went there. I played for my first coach was Balikov, was a huge legend in Bulgaria. He played in the 94 World Cup. So he taught me a bunch of stuff as well. Pinev was a coach. I had crazy coaches. Even Stoichkov. I met Stoichkov. It's crazy. Hristos Stoichkov, player of Barcelona. like I was not expecting that to happen going to Bulgaria. But great experience. It's the Wild West out in Bulgaria, but it's a very, very welcoming league to help a player learn and grow.
So wild story, and I think we're gonna have you back on five more times.
I don't even know if we could
just to get through all of it.
Beers.
But the question we have to ask is, then why now MLS? Because you play at top leagues in Europe, you win it in an Asian Champions League in the K League. So why now did this move make sense?
I was always looking for a moment to come back, but I didn't know when. And this moment right now, I go to Asia, and I think that we're gonna win something. So I'm thinking, okay, if we win something, either I go somewhere where I'm just gonna stay for 4 years, or stay here for 4 years, or maybe MLS. I don't know. We win the Champions League. My team does a full revamp of everyone, coach, players. We lose half the players, and I'm just like, you know what? It's time to go home. Maybe it's just time to go home. Maybe it's time to just take the contract that I can get that I know that I deserve in the MLS. And then, I'm having a baby. It's time to just settle down and stop moving around. I have moved around. I've enjoyed it. I've been everywhere. I've been to 3 different continents. I've scored on 2 different continents. I've visited so many other places on vacation with my wife. So, I could have played in almost 3 continents if I played in Australia, but we didn't get this play in Australia. But anyway, you know what I mean? I've done so much that I don't think I need to show anybody anything else. I've won something that nobody probably will ever be able to win for an American or a Norwegian in that standpoint, winning the Asian Champions League. So I think now is the time to get back. And obviously, Renard, he knew me from when I was supposed to sign with him to Standard Liège back when I was at Otto. So, I mean, it was just common ground for me to. It was a good option to go, and it was also, it's a great city. I was born in New York, so it's not very far from where I was born. So, I mean, I felt that it was just a great moment to get back into the MLS. And obviously, after the 25th year of the MLS, I'm now turning 30 this year, and the way that the trajectory of the MLS in my whole career, in the last 10 years, is absolutely amazing. So why not be a part of that? Why not be, I want to put some history down in MLS. So for myself, obviously.
Yeah,
So,
we could make this a baby podcast, I don't know if people out there know. I have children. Now Bjorn is going to have his first child. We could really go deep down that hole. Let's not. Let's talk more about the soccer. If you want to later, I'm available. You know how to get at me. Maybe we didn't do a good job explaining who you are as a player. So you went through this progression as a young pro. You ended up as a center forward, as a goal scorer. That's what you do. Tell us how. Tell us why. You're 6'5". You're going to be a tough matchup for a lot of center backs back there. Bjorn, what kind of player are you, man? What should we expect when we see you hit the field?
let's just remember that when I went to Norway the first time, I was a winger. I was an attacking midfielder, like a Yaya Toure, kind of running back and forth box to box, and then they ended up putting me as a right winger. And from there, I gradually put myself into the first starting center forward because I kept growing. I was like only 5'9", 6 foot when I first got to Norway. So, growing obviously helped me as well. I'm a clinical finisher. I think that's my bread and butter. Hopefully I get the opportunity to play so I can show that. I'm not your common target forward. I am a target forward. I have that in Holland. But I like to move. I don't like to stand in the same spot. I like to use my movement and my football knowledge to get into the right spaces to score goals. And I think that's what the Club de Foot Montreal will be ready to see, and hopefully they'll get that from me. I'm aspiring to be a better player. Obviously, with the coach that we have right now, he could leave, he could not, but I hope that he does, so I can learn from him. And what I'm going to do is just bring the experience of what I have done in my career to a group that right now they look like they have a future in the next couple of years. So I think that it's the pieces are coming together where we can build a great club that people will want to come and watch again in Montreal. And I think that obviously we're not going to be playing there right now, but it is a great year to build and show that we can be a force to be reckoned with in the next couple of years in the playoffs again. So obviously it's one of the only teams from the MLS to be in the Champions League finals. So that's probably a reason why I came here. And I know that they have the potential. And I'm hoping to bring back good memories like they did in 2015.
You did a really nice job there. You were like, the coach that we have here. Normally people just say Thierry Henry's name. Yeah. Normally it just like flows right off the tongue. How attractive is that to you? I mean, the Bournemouth thing, it looks like Jonathan Woodgate's going to stay. Thierry's Thierry. People are always going to talk about Thierry if there are open coaching positions. What do you hope to learn from him? What does working under a player of that magnitude mean to you? A winger, converted center forward? I mean, this is a match made in heaven, man.
Yeah, obviously I'm a little bit taller than him, but I think right now in my career I have that moment where you're going to be the second half of my career is happening now, the next 5 years to 6 years. Obviously now in 2021, our bodies can last longer if I have no injuries. So you never know. But now is the second part of my year where I need to learn the most I can so that I can use my mind less than my body, so to speak. So to learn from him is probably from Thierry is obviously is probably the best thing that could have happened for me. But I mean, obviously, how football is. If he leaves, he leaves, and that's how it is. I think he had a hard year last year, not being with his family. That's what I hear, and obviously, all the people have. So it's a very difficult situation for him. I think he's building on our team right now. So I hope that he stays because I think there's a lot of potential in the team.
I think we would be remiss if we didn't ask you one question about Norway. Given that our producer, Anders Aarhus, comes from Norwegian stock, loves the Norwegian national team, is wearing a Norwegian national team jersey right now. You can't see him, but he's wearing it. Tell us, I mean, that's the dream. You said, this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to go play internationally, play professionally, and you did it. What was that moment like for you to finally sort of get over that line?
It didn't sink in until, it's funny, until my 13th game. So first game I played in Czech Republic for the World Cup qualifiers. I almost scored. If I had scored, we might have had a chance to maybe get into a playoff. So that was, that was my first game. It was crazy. So, I had a great time with the national team, but it didn't sink in until game 13 or 14 when we played Spain. My wife's Spanish. My whole in-law family was there. I'm training with Odegaard. I'm training with big players in Europe, worldwide. People know everybody on our team, and I come in and my first header is against Sergio Ramos, and against Busquets, and against Jordi Alba, Iñigo Martinez, and I just realized, bro, you got to go for it. Just go for it. I win the penalty for us to score 1-1, and they Josh scored against De Gea for the penalty. We obviously lost that game after 2 minutes. We scored again, 2-1. Panenka from Sergio Ramos, obviously. So, that was just surreal. That was my dream. My dream was to make it to that point, to be in a European qualifier, to be important for my national team. Everyone in Europe saw that game, that kind of stuff. That kind of stuff was what I dreamed of doing. So once I'd done that, I'm not saying that stopped my aspirations to keep playing for the national team. It didn't. But I knew that I fulfilled what I set out to do. Whether that I came from freaking 3rd division Spain, 3rd division Norway. I'm not coming from youth team draft, super draft, going to Villarreal like the guy from Toronto. I can't remember his name. Oh yeah, Jose. I'm just messing. You know what I mean? This kind of stuff.
Yeah.
This kind of stuff. That kind of stuff was what you live for. So that was what put icing on the cake for me.
Yeah, man, you've lived a lot of dreams. You got some interesting stories. You've got another opportunity, another adventure in Montreal. We'll be looking up north. I mean, I would not New York City anymore, but I love Montreal, the city. We'll be rooting for you, Bjorn.
I appreciate it. I don't need anybody rooting for me because that gives me fuel. Obviously, Dave.
You're gonna fail, Bjorn. Bjorn, you're going down.
But we're here for you now because this is an official Bjorn Johnsen fan podcast. Do you want us to say bad stuff about you in Montreal all the time to fool you, or can we support you?
We can send you clips.
I didn't nitpick. I'm just messing with them. No problem.
Okay.
Listen,
I'm here for you.
You just got to remember, you don't know who's watching.
Yeah.
I was in Spain.
Clearly, that's
Hey, you remember the calendar, the map that you were talking about, Andrew? Well, now you can put on South Korea, you can put Spain, you can put Norway. Boom. You can put a lot of places on that map now, man.
Just from Bjorn Johnsen. Just globetrotting, listening to Extra Time. It's perfect, man. We're so glad we got you on the show. We'll be watching closely, obviously, this year. I'm sad I don't have the Johnsen on my back. I will not say Johnsen ever again.
Let me deserve that
sorry.
First. Let me score some goals, and then you can put it on there.
Okay, perfect. Good luck, man. Thanks for joining the show.
Appreciate it, guys.
Bjorn Johnsen, add him to the list of Extra Time legends. Producing Anders, there has to be some sort of drop in there. There has to be something that we can use for the intro. So dig back through that. I know you will with your Viking blood here. Jason Kim hit us up, and we'll kind of transition now straight into the mailbag. Says he's a Montreal fan, wants to express his opinions on the rebrand and the Henry connection to Bournemouth. Not a huge fan of the rebrand. He says the front office meant well, but he doesn't think they read the fan base. Understandable, they want to reshape the club in the mold of more of a European-type club, but we'll see how it all plays out. But along with Henry leaving, he says there's a feeling of instability, that maybe there might be more extra pressure on players to be successful right now. He says for essentially a new team, which Bjorn kind of said, it's a young team, it feels like a lot. They don't have a charismatic presence, says Jason. There's no Drogba here. There's no Bernier. There's no Piatti. I mean, I just saw Charlie Boehm's tweet the other day where he had the Drogba and Piatti hug, and I was like, man, that feels like a different era of my life, let alone MLS. So Jason's question is, what would be regarded as a relatively, quote, good season? Is it just finishing with a playoff spot? Is it progress among the players? What is it?
So the team, those players you mentioned, iconic legends, the teams they played on were top heavy. Most of Piatti's teams he was on, if it wasn't him, they weren't going to be able to compete. They weren't going to win in games. Where I think the idea now is Montreal is hoping they're the Colorado Rapids East, right? That they're a team with a lot of young pieces who can all take ownership because this is an opportunity for them to play with some experience around them and feel that they can make a difference. And then Henri now is trying to figure out a system that they all fit into to get the best out of them. But the hope is, and we had a few fans kind of tweet at us after the last show as well, like, give us some hope. If it was me, the hope is this is a scrappy young team. Like, this is going to be fun. They're going to be a college basketball team where it's like, you can't tell us we're bad. We hate you. We're friends. We like what we do. And they create a culture where they go out and get things done. So I think that all has the potential. I mean, there's a decent chance that a Kamal Miller takes a step where we're talking about him for an all-star appearance, that we're talking about him as one of the better center backs in MLS because he gets this opportunity. Mihailovic as well coming out of this season.
Is right now Bjorn Johnsen a starter for this team, do you think? He talked about Romo Kyoto, and I like your Colorado Rapids of the East reference. I liked that. That was good. They've gone out and gotten some quote-unquote distressed assets.
The Rapids way have come so far.
Yeah. And then they got Romo Kyoto. The Rapids were like, we got to get Michael Barrios. We just got like, let's do this. Is he the starter? Is Bjorn the starter? Is our guy the starter?
Montreal is one of the biggest question marks because we still don't know how they'll play. And I don't think they do. They don't know how their talent totally fits together. And they have acquired assets that they saw available, not specifically because it all fits into an 11. So there's still a question if it's a 3-5-2 or if he plays a 4-3 or if Henri plays a 4-3-3 and then how he fits in alongside that. But based off his experience level and what they kind of lack in the other pieces, he's fighting for one of the two forward spots as of now.
All right. Let's see what else we got here in the mailbag today. We have a text line. Said, great show this week. Turned me into a huge Tony Sane fan. We got a bunch of those. A ton. So if you haven't listened to the Tony Sane interview, please go back and listen to the one. It's really, really good. Alexi Lawless hit us up because we're doing this thing now where we put out a tweet on the day of shows. And whatever stuff we don't get to, we'll jump into the Twitter mentions and hash it out with you. So, Alexi, hey.
Alexi from Parts Unknown, did he say where he's from?
He didn't, so we don't know. This could be a bot account. I'm not sure what it is. In the last pod, you devalued, disrespected, and disregarded the 2020 season in, quote, giving a pass to teams, players, the league because of the unique season. You belittle accomplishments of those who managed to adapt, adjust, and be successful. If 2020 doesn't count, then it all doesn't count. Now, Alexi, I would like to correct you. That is a very well-written, strongly worded tweet. I did not attempt to give a pass to teams, players, or the league. I guess we did. We said most people get a pass.
I did.
I tried to give it to Chicharito.
I reject the binary of how Alexi sees it. Like, more respect to teams like the Union and Columbus and Portland who, when they had the opportunity, they performed at a really, really high level, played some great soccer, won some trophies. A ton of respect to Toronto as well, who played great soccer for a good long while living away from home for months at a time. Yeah, in Connecticut. I think those teams deserve a ton of respect, but I do think that the teams that didn't do as well and the players and people who struggled with it, understanding their struggle doesn't devalue the accomplishments of the teams that did really, really well. Taquito disagrees. He's tearing me up right now.
Yeah, he's like, no passes, no free passes given.
He's a ginger, just like Alexi.
He is a ginger. That's a really, really good point. Here's the thing about the pass, the quote-unquote pass for 2020. You have to pay for that pass still. Like, they're going to come into 2021, and it's not like it's just like, oh, all's well and good in fill-in-the-blank neighborhood where you didn't make the playoffs when the field was expanded or you had a disappointing season. Like, you still have to pay for that. Chicharito still has to either get back to a point where people are saying this is a player who can start for Mexico, who can be the leading light for a team in Major League Soccer, who is worth the many millions of dollars he's being paid, who is worth the profile that he has in Los Angeles. Like, you don't just get to escape it and saying, hey, we understand you have a pass. That doesn't mean that you're scot-free, right? there still is a price to be paid. There still is sort of a point where it sort of all resets and you say, well, back at it again.
I also think this sort of ties back into, we had the debate last year about the asterisk. And I guess you assume, and this is probably your angle as well, which I didn't think of, you assume an asterisk is a negative thing. It's not a negative connotation. It's a point out that this is different.
Yes.
And what those teams accomplished last year is different. The Portland Timbers won a championship last year, which is incredible for what they had to go through. They didn't win a championship like a team in 2018 and 2017 and 1995 or 1996 won a championship, right?
You picked 1995.
Yeah, I know.
How did that happen?
Right?
They didn't go into an away stadium and play in front of those crowds and have to deal with that. At the same time, they had to live in a bubble in Florida for a month. So it being different doesn't make it negative. And by giving someone a pass for not accomplishing that thing or succeeding in that space doesn't take away from what was accomplished by the teams that won. It just means it was different than what's happened before.
I think that's a fair way of putting it. Tommy, Let's Go Ducks 96 said, if you had the power, how would you pick U.S. Open Cup participants? How would you do it for MLS? I don't think we know yet. It's 8
You're
teams.
talking about a reduced field, right? Because
Yes,
dream
we're talking-
scenario is everyone.
Of course. This is the 2021 version reduced field. How would you do it? I would start with teams that don't have any trophies in their trophy case.
Really?
Look at that.
Yeah, why not?
All
Let's
right.
get the narrative going, baby. You have
I
an
like that.
opportunity. You have a chance. It's a little bit of a smaller field. You know, some people might say they're getting a pass for previous failures in these competitions. I say it's an opportunity. And it's you have the Leagues Cup for other teams to jump into. You got CONCACAF Champions League. So I'm curious how they're going to do qualification because you can't put all the same teams in all the different fronts. Like
So
do have to spread that out given the way that everything
What's
happens.
interesting to me, though, is your reward. Just because I'm in CCL doesn't mean I don't want a second chance to win a trophy that I earned.
Okay, but I get
Right?
the want part. I completely get that part. But just from a strictly logistical standpoint of a packed year, it's a shortened calendar with let's be honest, a wild card at play, which is a pandemic. You have to find a way to get all those games in. You want to play Leagues Cup, you want to play Open Cup, you're going to play CONCACAF Champions League. What do you
Interesting.
do?
So I would say for me, if you want to take the CCL teams out of it, it would be the next in the standings from the regular season. And for USL, they broke themselves into the groups. I would assume the winner of each group that can qualify, because like Reno no longer exists, they would get in from the USL point of view. That's my guess.
Let us know what you think. It'll be interesting when that does come out. Here is an interesting one from, let's see. Do we do the Doyle Weeby storylines one, or we save that one for last?
So let's save that one.
Okay, fine. How about this one? The Toronto Duck. Michael Bradley has probably played his last game for the national team. First, do we agree with that statement?
No.
Yeah, I do.
Really?
Yeah. I just
You don't think over the course of this year there's going to be a time where he comes back?
I think there's a chance, but I think there's a better chance that he has played his final, other than maybe a testimonial at some point.
Okay, testimonial leads us into the real question here, which is what is Michael Bradley's national legacy?
I think he goes into the all-time best 11. He's a guy who carried the flag for a while, especially in the down period, what he did in Europe. And I think his 2010 performance, the goal at the Azteca, I think those are the things. Once we get past a little bit of the energy that he has produced over the last few years, especially, and I think part of it is playing in MLS against other fans, right? Like we know the Columbus fans booed him the first time he went to Columbus as a Toronto player. I think that's led to more.
Atlanta fans did it too after the World Cup.
Right. I
Not
think once
World
that
Cup.
goes away, it'll be remembered as one of the greats of all time.
Yeah, I think he should be remembered as as someone who set a certain standard and set a different path, going from MLS, no college, into the Eredivisie, jumping around, learning languages, integrating himself into cultures, and succeeding along the way. That's always been one of the things that I've thought about Michael, and it was the period of time in which I really got into this game, and in particular, I really got into the national team, was when he was making these jumps. I remember when he had hair and he played in Canada at the U20 World Cup, and you were like, oh, Danny Sestella was the big thing, and he goes to Santander, and you're wondering what's going to happen with him. I think what Michael showed is that, yes, talent matters, but like determination and dedication also are just as important, if not more important. And I thought what he was able to do at a lot of different stops is maybe the most impressive thing of his career. So, you learn Dutch. You make it as a young player. You make the jump to Germany. You learn German. You go to Italy. I just think the sum of all those parts are things that all of our young players should be trying to replicate. So, good question. Dave says, how do I get in 60 seconds when I have a box full of Michael Bradley jerseys sitting behind me? I think you're right. And I don't think it's the energy he created. I think that was your words, and you probably didn't mean them that way. It was the energy that somehow he inspired in other people, and that probably does have a lot to do with returning to MLS when he did and people's expectations that they had put on him, and then the fact that he turned Toronto FC into a winner. So he'll go down as a winner. That's what he'll go down for. Let's do our favorite storyline and get out of here.
I don't think we have time, Weeby. I think we're going to get out of here and do our favorite storylines.
Fine.
Next.
David and Skokie has a legendary email. We'll read it on the next show. We'll see you on Thursday, everybody. Enjoy your week.